My adopted daughter shouted in anger. "You should have left me in the orphanage." Those words struck me to the core, shattering years of love and sacrifice. But instead of arguing, I decided to show her what could have been if I hadn't adopted her. The reality was harsh, and the consequences were irreversible. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The front door slammed with enough force to rattle the windows. Anna burst into the living room like a storm, her backpack hitting the hardwood floor with a thud that echoed through our quiet house. I looked up from the financial report spread across my coffee table, my reading glasses catching the warm lamplight. "Everyone's going! It's just 1 week! Why do you always ruin everything?" Her voice cracked with frustration as she stormed toward my leather armchair, pulling a crumpled travel brochure from her jacket pocket. I set down the quarterly statements and removed my glasses slowly. The Mexico trip? I'd been expecting this conversation since her friends started planning their spring break adventure 3 weeks ago. Standing from my chair, I watched her pace across the Persian rug like a caged animal. "Anna, I know these people. This isn't the kind of company you don't know anything." She whirled around, her brown eyes blazing with the kind of fire that reminded me of her mother, not her biological mother, but Sarah, my late wife who could argue with equal passion when she believed in something. "You just want to control me forever." The travel itinerary slapped against the mahogany coffee table as Anna threw it down. Pictures of pristine beaches and resort pools scattered across my carefully organized financial documents. Her hands shook as she pointed at the glossy images. "Look at this. It's a legitimate resort. There are chaperones. What's so terrible about me having fun for once?" I stepped closer, my voice measured despite the growing ache in my chest. "This isn't about control, Anna. It's about safety. These aren't the right people." "Right people?" Her laugh was bitter, sharp enough to cut. "You mean people who aren't rich enough for your standards? People who actually know how to live instead of counting money all day?" The accusation stung more than I expected. I'd worked 60-hour weeks for 15 years to give her everything. Piano lessons, private tutoring, college tuition paid in full. The irony wasn't lost on me that my dedication to providing for her had somehow become a character flaw in her eyes. "That's not what this is about." I kept my voice steady, though my hands clenched at my sides. "I've done my research on this group. Marcus has 2 arrests for public intoxication. Jenny was suspended for bringing alcohol to school. These aren't—" "Enough!" Anna's scream echoed off the vaulted ceiling. Family photos on the mantelpiece seemed to witness our fracturing relationship. My dead wife's smile looked down from her wedding portrait, frozen in happier times when our family felt complete. Anna's chest heaved as she struggled for words. When they came, they hit me like physical blows. "You know what? I wish you'd left me in that orphanage. At least there I had freedom. I hate you." The keys to her Honda Civic flew through the air in slow motion. I watched them arc across the living room, their metal surface catching lamplight before striking the hardwood wall with a metallic clang. The sound reverberated through the sudden silence. Anna stood frozen for a heartbeat, her face pale with the realization of what she'd said. Then she spun and ran for the staircase, her footsteps pounding against each wooden step. Her bedroom door slammed so hard that the house shuddered. I stared at the keys lying on the floor where they had fallen. The orphanage. 15 years of love, sacrifice, and sleepless nights, and she wished I'd left her there. I bent to retrieve Anna's keys from where they'd landed, their weight heavier in my palm than usual. The metal was still warm from her grip. Walking slowly toward the staircase, each step felt deliberate, measured. I paused outside Anna's door, my hand rising to knock, then falling back to my side. Muffled sobbing filtered through the wood, but knocking would only make things worse right now. My study welcomed me with familiar silence. I closed the door softly and moved to the tall window overlooking our backyard garden. March evening, darkness had settled over Wilmington, streetlights casting long shadows across the lawn Sarah had planted years ago. The daffodils were beginning to bloom. The frame photograph on my desk caught my attention. 5-year-old Anna, gap-toothed and grinning, her tiny hand clasped in mine at the adoption ceremony. She'd been so grateful then, so excited to have a family. When had that gratitude turned to resentment? I sank into my leather desk chair, loosening my tie. The day's stress had left my shoulders aching, but Anna's words had carved something deeper. The orphanage. She actually believed life would have been better there. Maybe it was time she understood what she was really saying. I opened the bottom drawer of my mahogany desk, fingers finding the manila folder I hadn't touched in years. Anna's adoption file, social worker reports, psychological evaluations, background checks on her biological parents. Information I'd hoped she'd never need to know. Linda Morris, 23, unemployed, multiple arrests for shoplifting and drug possession. Trevor Wilson, 25, construction worker when sober. Both had signed away their parental rights without hesitation when offered the chance. My cell phone felt heavy as I scrolled through my contacts. Harry Brennan, college roommate turned county social worker. We'd kept in touch over the years, Christmas cards and occasional lunch meetings. He'd helped facilitate Anna's adoption, had connections throughout the system. The phone rang twice before Harry's familiar voice answered. "Jim, it's late for you to be calling." "Harry, it's about Anna. I need a favor." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the adoption paperwork. "Remember that contact you mentioned at the County Children's Services? The one who handles reunification programs?" "Sure, Margaret Collins. Why?" "Anna needs to understand her past. She thinks life would have been better without me." The words tasted bitter. "I want to show her what that actually means." Harry was quiet for a long moment. "Jim, that's a dangerous game you're considering. She's 19, legally an adult. She can make her own choices about meeting her biological family." I traced Anna's signature on the adoption agreement. "I just want her to make an informed choice. I can make some calls tomorrow, but Jim, once you open this door, I know the risks." I closed the file and set it aside. But she needs to see the alternative before she throws away what we have. After hanging up, I remained in my chair until nearly midnight, watching shadows shift across the ceiling. Upstairs, Anna's music had stopped playing hours ago. The house settled into the kind of silence that feels fragile, like stepping on thin ice. Tomorrow would change everything. Morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows as I poured my second cup of coffee. I'd been awake since 5, dressed in weekend clothes instead of my usual business attire. Khakis and a polo shirt felt strange for a Saturday, but today wasn't about maintaining professional appearances. Anna appeared in the doorway at 8:30, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she'd slept as poorly as I had. She moved cautiously toward the counter, avoiding eye contact while reaching for the bread. "Good morning, Anna." She paused, her hand hovering over the toaster. "Morning." The single word carried the weight of our unfinished argument. I folded my newspaper and set down my coffee cup, studying my daughter as she prepared her breakfast. Her movements were careful, deliberate, like someone walking through a minefield. The toast popped up with a mechanical click. Anna buttered it slowly, stealing glances in my direction. The kitchen felt smaller somehow, our usual morning routine compressed by yesterday's explosion. "You'll get your trip," I said quietly. Her head snapped up, eyes wide with surprise. "What? But not quite the one you planned." I pushed my chair back from the table, standing slowly. "I'm going to show you a different kind of life. Life without me and my money." Anna set down her toast, confusion replacing the hope that had briefly flickered across her face. "What do you mean by that?" "Pack comfortable clothes, nothing fancy. We're taking a journey to your past." I moved toward the kitchen doorway, then turned back. "You wanted to know what life would be like if I'd left you in that orphanage. I'm going to show you." "Dad, what are you talking about?" The question hung in the air between us. Part of me wanted to explain everything, to prepare her for what we'd find. But Anna needed to discover the truth herself, needed to feel the weight of her words from yesterday. "Pack enough for 3 days. We leave tomorrow morning." I paused at the threshold. "And Anna, bring your birth certificate. You're going to need it." Her fork clattered against her plate. "Need it for what?" "To meet your biological parents." The color drained from her face. I'd never seen Anna look truly afraid before, but something flickered in her expression now. Uncertainty. The first crack in her armor of teenage invincibility. "You're serious." "Completely." I smiled, though it felt hollow. "You wanted freedom from my control? You're about to experience total freedom. No safety net, no college fund, no credit cards in my name. Just you and the family that gave you up 19 years ago." Anna's mouth opened, then closed without sound. She stared at me as if seeing a stranger, which perhaps she was. The father who'd always protected her from harsh realities was about to remove every buffer between her and the world. "I don't understand. Are you giving me away again?" The pain in her voice almost broke my resolve. Almost. But yesterday's words still echoed in my mind. The orphanage. She wished I'd left her there. "I'm giving you exactly what you asked for. A chance to see what your life would have been like without my interference." I gripped the doorframe. When you've spent time with Linda and Trevor, when you understand what poverty really means, then you can decide if you still hate me. I turned toward the stairs, leaving Anna alone with her cooling toast and the weight of an impossible choice. 3 hours later, Anna had left to meet her friends, probably to tell them about our mysterious journey. I cleared my desk systematically, pushing aside client portfolios and quarterly reports. The adoption files emerged from my locked drawer like archaeological artifacts, manila folders yellow with age. Margaret Chen had been Anna's original caseworker. I found her business card clipped to the front of the thickest file, her direct number still legible after 14 years. My fingers traced the faded ink as I dialed. "County Children's Services, Margaret speaking. Ms. Chen, this is James Cunningham. You handled my daughter Anna's adoption in 2011. A pause. "Mr. Cunningham? Yes, I remember Anna's case. Such a bright little girl. How is she doing?" "She's 19 now, and..." I chose my words carefully. "She's expressed interest in learning about her biological family. I was hoping you could provide some guidance." "The biological parents?" "Yes, that was a complicated situation." Margaret's voice carried the weight of countless difficult cases. They were very young, early 20s, felt overwhelmed by responsibility. I spread Anna's birth certificate across my desk, studying the names I'd tried to forget. Linda Morris, Trevor Wilson. "Do you know if they're still in the area?" "Last I heard, they were still in the Greensboro area, but that was years ago." "Mr. Cunningham, may I ask why this interest now?" "Anna needs to understand her choices." I pulled out a legal pad, pen poised. "She thinks life would have been better without my involvement." Margaret was quiet for a moment. "I see. Well, legally, she's an adult. She has the right to seek contact. But James, some doors are better left closed." After hanging up, I called Harry. My college roommate answered on the second ring, his voice warm with recognition. "Jim, how did the conversation with Anna go?" "She agreed to the trip, but I need more current information." I leaned back in my leather chair, watching afternoon shadows creep across the wall. "Do you know any private investigators? Someone discreet?" "I know a guy, former police detective, very thorough." "What exactly do you need?" "Current addresses, employment status, lifestyle observations, nothing invasive, just..." I paused, searching for the right words. "I need to know what Anna will be walking into." Harry provided the contact information, his voice carrying a note of concern. "Jim, are you sure about this? Sometimes the truth is harder to live with than the fantasy." Within an hour, Detective Morrison had called back. His voice was professional, efficient. "I can get you basic information within 6 hours. Current addresses, employment verification, any public records. My fee is $500 for a rush job." "How quickly can you get this information? We're traveling tomorrow." "I'll email you everything by 6 p.m. today. Mr. Cunningham, may I ask the nature of your interest in these individuals?" "They're my adopted daughter's biological parents. She wants to meet them." I massaged my temples, feeling the weight of what I was setting in motion. "I need to know what we're walking into." "I understand. I'll be thorough, but respectful. Some information might be difficult to read." "I'm prepared for that." As 6 o'clock approached, I found myself checking email obsessively. When Morrison's message finally arrived, the subject line made my stomach tighten. Subject information, comprehensive report. The attachment contained 12 pages of photographs, addresses, employment records, and behavioral observations. I printed everything, my hand steady despite the magnitude of what I was about to show Anna. Tomorrow would change everything. Anna burst through the front door at 7:30, her cheeks flushed from excitement and cool evening air. I heard her dropping her purse in the hallway, her footsteps quick and purposeful as she found me in the living room. "Dad, I told everyone about our trip." Her eyes sparkled with an energy I hadn't seen in months. They think it's so cool that you're taking me on this journey of self-discovery. Journey of self-discovery. If only she knew. I set aside the newspaper I'd been pretending to read, the detective's report safely hidden in my study upstairs. What exactly did you tell them? That we're going to explore my past, maybe meet people who knew me before the adoption. She settled onto the couch beside my chair, tucking her legs under her. I've been thinking all day. Maybe I'll finally understand where I come from. The hope in her voice made my chest tighten. Part of me wanted to prepare her, to soften what she was about to discover. But Anna needed to experience the full impact of her words from yesterday. Pack comfortable walking shoes, I said, keeping my voice neutral. We'll be doing some exploring. Will there be people who knew me from the orphanage? I'll show you places where you might have lived, your alternative life. I chose each word carefully, never lying directly but revealing nothing. Sometimes understanding the past helps us appreciate the present. Anna leaned forward, her excitement building. I found some old photos in my room, from when I was little, right after the adoption. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through pictures. Look at this one. I was so tiny. The image showed 5-year-old Anna on our front porch, gap-toothed smile bright with innocent joy. My arm was around her shoulders, both of us grinning at the camera. Sarah had taken the photo on Anna's first day home. You were terrified of the vacuum cleaner, I remembered, studying the picture. But you loved helping me wash the car. I don't remember being scared. Anna traced her younger face on the screen. I just remember feeling safe, like I'd finally found where I belonged. The irony wasn't lost on me. Safe, belonging. The very things she claimed to hate about our life together. We should both get some sleep, I said, standing slowly. We're leaving early, 6 a.m. Where exactly are we going first? Greensboro, about 2.5 hours north. I paused at the bottom of the stairs. Anna, whatever we discover tomorrow, remember that you asked for this journey. She nodded, still scrolling through childhood photos. I know, I'm ready to see who I really am without all the protection. Protection. Another word she'd turned into an accusation. Tomorrow she'd learn exactly what that protection had shielded her from. Good night, sweetheart. Night, Dad, and thank you for doing this. I know it's probably hard for you. Harder than she could imagine, but necessary. I climbed the stairs, listening to Anna's soft humming from the living room as she continued exploring her childhood memories. The detective's report waited in my briefcase, filled with current realities that would shatter her romantic notions about her biological family. Tomorrow, she'd understand the true meaning of gratitude. Dawn crept through my bedroom curtains at 5:30. I'd been awake for an hour, mentally rehearsing the day ahead. The detective's report lay folded in my briefcase, along with Anna's original adoption paperwork and current addresses for Linda Morris and Trevor Wilson. Anna appeared in the kitchen as I loaded our overnight bags into the car, her hair still damp from the shower. She moved with the eager energy of someone embarking on an adventure, completely unaware of what awaited her in Greensboro. I made us coffee for the road, she said, handing me a travel mug, and I packed those granola bars you like. The thoughtfulness in her gesture made my resolve waver for a moment. But then I remembered her words from 2 nights ago. The orphanage. She wished I'd left her there. Ready? I asked, closing the trunk with deliberate finality. Ready. Anna climbed into the passenger seat, a small photo album clutched in her lap. I brought pictures from when I was little. Maybe they'll help trigger memories. Interstate 40 stretched before us as we left Wilmington's coastal charm behind. Anna chattered excitedly for the first hour, speculating about what we might discover, who we might meet. I let her talk, offering non-committal responses while following the route I'd memorized from Morrison's detailed report. I wonder if I'll recognize anything, Anna mused, flipping through her photo album. I barely remember their faces, my biological parents. Do you remember anything about that time? I kept my voice casual, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. Before the adoption? Anna was quiet for several minutes, her fingers tracing the edges of old photographs. Gray walls, that smell of disinfectant, and feeling empty, like I was waiting for something but didn't know what. The landscape gradually changed as we drove inland. Pristine coastal towns gave way to industrial cities, manicured lawns replaced by chain-link fences and aging apartment complexes. Anna's chatter slowly faded as she stared out the window. "The landscape is getting grayer, isn't it?" she observed, closing her photo album. "Different," I agreed, noting the exact moment her excitement began shifting to uncertainty. I remember gray walls and that smell of disinfectant. Anna pressed her face against the window. "Do you think they ever wondered what happened to me, my biological parents?" "I'm sure they did." The lie came easily. Morrison's report indicated otherwise, but Anna would learn that soon enough. We passed a series of rundown shopping centers and abandoned gas stations. Anna's reflection in the passenger window showed growing apprehension, replacing her earlier enthusiasm. "Dad, are you sure they'll want to see me?" "We'll find out." I checked the GPS. 30 minutes to Greensboro. 30 minutes until Anna's education began. "This area looks different than I expected." Anna's voice had lost its adventurous edge. "Those buildings look kind of run down." "This is the real world, Anna. The world without trust funds and college savings accounts." I kept my tone neutral, letting the environment speak for itself. Anna fell silent, studying the increasingly deteriorated neighborhoods we passed. Boarded windows, graffiti-covered walls, groups of men loitering outside convenience stores. This wasn't the romantic reunion she'd imagined. "Are we almost there?" "Very close." I turned onto Morrison Avenue, following the detective's precise directions. "Anna, whatever happens today, remember that you asked for this." She nodded, though her earlier excitement had vanished completely. The confident young woman who demanded independence now looked very much like the frightened 5-year-old I'd adopted 14 years ago. Soon, she'd understand exactly what I'd saved her from. I parked across from a gray concrete building that looked like a small prison. Anna was still studying her childhood photos when the engine died, leaving us in sudden silence. She glanced up, expecting something different, maybe a quaint cottage or welcoming facility with flowers and painted signs. Instead, she saw institutional reality. "Dad, this doesn't look like—" Anna's voice faltered as she compared the building to her romanticized expectations. "What exactly are we doing here?" "Take a good look, Anna, really look." I kept my hands on the steering wheel, watching her face carefully. 14 years of protection were about to unravel in the next few minutes. Anna pressed her face against the passenger window, studying the chain-link fence surrounding the property. The small barred windows, the minimal playground equipment that looked like afterthoughts. Somewhere inside, children's voices carried through the thick walls. Not happy laughter, but the subdued chatter of institutional life. This can't be." Her voice grew smaller with each word. "This is where you could have stayed." I turned off the ignition with deliberate finality. "This is where I found you 15 years ago." Anna's photo album slipped from her hands, scattering pictures across the car floor. Her 5-year-old face smiled up from various snapshots. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, beach vacations, all the memories that had replaced this gray building. "Dad, this is a joke, right?" She turned to me with desperate hope in her eyes. "You're trying to scare me into appreciating what I have?" "No, Anna, this is the Greensboro Children's Home." I opened my car door, cold March air rushing in. "This is where you lived for the first 5 years of your life." Anna remained frozen in the passenger seat, staring at the building as if it might transform into something more palatable. But concrete doesn't lie. Chain-link fences don't pretend to be white picket fences. The smell of industrial disinfectant that she'd mentioned during our drive was already reaching us through the car's open door. "I don't want to go in there." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "You asked to see your past." I stood beside the car, briefcase in hand. "This is where it begins." Slowly, Anna opened her door and stepped onto the cracked pavement. Her legs seemed unsteady, as if the ground beneath her feet was shifting. She took one step toward the building, then stopped, then took an involuntary step backward. I remember the playground. She pointed at the sparse equipment with trembling fingers. "That swing set. I used to sit there when other kids got adopted." The weight of her words hit both of us simultaneously. Anna had memories of watching other children leave while she remained behind. The confident teenager who demanded independence was disappearing, replaced by the abandoned 5-year-old who'd waited by windows for parents who never came. "We don't have to go inside if you're not ready." Part of me hoped she'd refuse, that we could end this lesson here. But Anna straightened her shoulders, drawing on reserves of courage I'd helped build over 14 years. No, I need to see it. I need to understand. We walked toward the entrance together, Anna's hand briefly touching my arm, seeking comfort from the very man she'd claimed to hate just days ago. Mrs. Patterson met us at the front desk, her kind face creased with years of caring for forgotten children. I'd called ahead yesterday, explaining that Anna wanted to revisit her early years. The elderly woman's eyes lit up with recognition, despite the 14 years that had passed. "Anna Cunningham," she said warmly, though Anna shrank behind me like a frightened child. "My goodness, you've grown into such a beautiful young woman." Anna managed a weak smile, her usual confidence completely absent. The institutional smell, a mixture of disinfectant, cafeteria food, and something indefinably sad, seemed to hit her like a physical force. She pressed closer to my side. "Would you like to see your old dormitory?" Mrs. Patterson asked gently. "We've kept some of the same layout." Anna nodded mutely, her throat working as if she were trying not to cry. We followed Mrs. Patterson down a long corridor with worn linoleum floors and fluorescent lighting that cast everything in harsh, unforgiving tones. Anna's footsteps grew more hesitant with each step. "You were such a quiet little girl," Mrs. Patterson continued, oblivious to Anna's growing distress, "always sitting by that window at the end of the hall, watching for someone to come." I felt Anna's intake of breath, sharp and painful. Her childhood photos had never shown these moments. The hours of waiting, the disappointment when visiting day ended without her being chosen. "Here's the dormitory." Mrs. Patterson opened a heavy door to reveal rows of narrow beds, each with a small metal locker. Current residents looked up with the guarded expressions of children who'd learned not to hope too much. Anna's bed was right there by the window. Anna walked slowly to the indicated spot, her hand trailing along the metal bed frame. Other children watched curiously as she stood frozen, staring at the thin mattress and scratchy blanket that had once been her entire world. "I remember this view." Her voice was hollow, distant. "I could see the parking lot from here. I used to count cars and pretend one of them was coming for me." Mrs. Patterson's expression softened with understanding. "You were so hopeful, sweetheart. Even after your parents signed away their rights and stopped visiting altogether." The words hit Anna like a slap. She spun around, eyes wide with shock. "They visited? My biological parents came here?" "Oh yes, dear. For the first few months, your mother would bring little gifts, candy bars, coloring books. But then," Mrs. Patterson trailed off, realizing she'd revealed something painful. "Then what?" Anna's voice was barely audible. "Then they stopped coming. The social worker said they'd made their decision final." Mrs. Patterson looked at me apologetically, understanding too late that some truths were better left unspoken. Anna sank onto the narrow bed, her hands gripping the metal frame. Tears finally came, not the dramatic sobs of teenage heartbreak, but the quiet, devastating weeping of a child who'd been abandoned twice. First by parents who'd stopped visiting, then by her own memory that had mercifully forgotten the waiting. "I remember now." The words came between quiet sobs. "I remember sitting right here, watching that parking lot every single day. Mrs. Patterson would tell me they were busy, that they'd come next week. But they never did." She looked up at me with eyes full of a pain I'd spent 14 years trying to heal. "You saved me from this place, didn't you? You saved me from waiting forever for people who didn't want me." The lesson I'd intended to teach suddenly felt cruel beyond measure. Anna wasn't learning gratitude. She was reliving abandonment. "Anna, I think we should—" "No." She stood up, wiping her eyes with determination. "I need to see everything. I need to understand what my life would have been." But I was beginning to understand that some lessons extract too high a price. 20 minutes later, I guided Anna's shell-shocked form out of the orphanage and into my car. She'd stopped crying, but something vital had gone out of her, the spark of rebellious energy that had driven our conflict. Now she sat silent, staring at her hands. "We need food," I said, though my own appetite had vanished. "There's a diner nearby." Anna nodded without really hearing. The short drive passed in heavy silence, both of us processing what we'd just experienced. I parked outside Mel's Highway Diner, a rundown establishment that screamed working-class desperation rather than cozy small-town charm. Inside, the air was thick with grease and cigarette smoke from the adjacent bar. Cracked vinyl booths and flickering fluorescent lights created an atmosphere of barely contained sadness. Anna slumped into our booth, still too overwhelmed to notice her surroundings. "Coffee?" I asked. "Sure." Her voice was flat, distant. I selected our table carefully, one with a clear view of the kitchen and waitstaff area. According to Morrison's report, Linda Morris worked the afternoon shift here, 2 to 10 p.m. It was nearly 2:30. "Sometimes facing the past helps us understand the present," I said, watching Anna stir sugar into her coffee with mechanical movements. "I understand plenty now." Anna's laugh was bitter. "I understand that I was wrong about everything. About you, about them, about what I thought I wanted. Perfect." The lesson was working exactly as I'd planned. Anna was finally seeing the truth about her biological parents' abandonment, finally understanding the life I'd saved her from. But watching her broken expression, victory felt hollow. "Do you see that waitress?" I asked quietly, nodding toward the service counter. "The one with brown hair?" Anna glanced up listlessly. A woman in her early 40s moved between tables with practiced efficiency, her face prematurely aged by hard living. Dark circles under her eyes, cheap uniform stained with coffee and food, hands that moved with the desperate speed of someone who depended entirely on tips. "What about her?" Anna asked without real interest. I watched my daughter's face carefully, preparing to deliver the final blow to her romantic notions about her biological family, the moment that would complete her education about the life she'd claimed to prefer over ours. "That's Linda Morris." Anna's coffee cup froze halfway to her lips. "Who is Linda Morris?" "Your biological mother." The cup slipped from Anna's fingers, coffee spreading across the scratched Formica table. She stared at the woman, her mother, with growing horror as understanding dawned. This tired, worn-down waitress was the person Anna had fantasized about for 19 years. The mother who might have given her a different, supposedly better life. "No." Anna's voice was barely a whisper. "That can't be her." But even as she denied it, I could see recognition flickering in her eyes. Something in Linda's bone structure, the shape of her nose, the way she moved. DNA doesn't lie. Linda approached our table with practiced cheer, order pad ready. "What can I get you folks?" Anna stared up at her biological mother with naked shock, unable to speak. Linda showed no recognition. Why would she? The last time she'd seen her daughter, Anna had been 5 years old. "Just coffee refills," I said smoothly. "We're fine for now." "Sure thing, hun." Linda poured coffee with tired efficiency and moved on to the next table, completely unaware that she'd just served the daughter she'd abandoned 14 years ago. Anna watched her walk away, tears streaming down her face as the final piece of her education fell into place. I left money on the table while Anna sat frozen, watching Linda clear dishes from a nearby booth. The ordinary efficiency of the movement, stacking plates, wiping surfaces, counting tips, somehow made the revelation more devastating than any dramatic confrontation could have been. "We should go," I said quietly. Anna nodded mechanically, sliding out of the booth without taking her eyes off Linda. At the door, she turned for one last look at her biological mother, who was already serving another table, chatting about daily specials as if the most important moment of Anna's adult life hadn't just passed unnoticed. The walk to our car felt surreal. Anna moved like someone sleepwalking, following my lead without conscious thought. I opened her door, waited while she settled into the passenger seat, then closed it gently. She immediately turned toward the window, creating as much distance between us as the car's interior allowed. Highway 40 stretched endlessly ahead as we began the journey home. I'd planned this route carefully 2 days ago, memorizing every turn and milestone. Now, the familiar road markers felt like witnesses to something I wasn't sure I should have done. Anna hadn't spoken since asking who Linda Morris was. She sat perfectly still, her reflection ghost-like in the passenger window, watching North Carolina countryside pass in reverse order. Industrial Greensboro gave way to smaller towns, then farmland, then the pine forests that meant we were nearing the coast. "Anna, I started, then stopped. What words could possibly address what she'd just experienced? Miles passed in heavy silence. I tried again. "The thing is, don't." The word was quiet, but final. Anna didn't turn from the window. I understand what you did. More silence. The radio played softly, some country song about coming home, but neither of us moved to change the station. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, while Anna remained motionless except for the occasional wipe of her eyes. I just need to think, she added after another 20 miles. So we drove in silence for the remaining hour and a half. The late afternoon sun created long shadows across the highway, marking time's passage in ways that conversation couldn't. Anna watched it all, the familiar landmarks, the signs announcing distances to Wilmington, the gradual return to the landscape of her real childhood. When we finally pulled into our driveway, Anna sat for a moment longer, staring at our house as if seeing it for the first time. The white columns, the manicured lawn, the flower beds Sarah had planted years ago, all of it representing the life that might never have existed. "Thank you," she said quietly, still looking at the house. "For driving, for everything." Then she got out and walked to the front door, leaving me alone in the car with the weight of what I'd orchestrated. Victory had never felt so much like defeat. I woke to the smell of coffee and something wonderful cooking downstairs. Sunlight streamed through my bedroom windows, and for a moment I forgot the events of yesterday, expecting a normal Saturday morning routine. Then memory returned, the orphanage, the diner, Anna's devastated face when she realized who Linda was. Checking my clock, I saw it was past 7. Anna was usually a late sleeper on weekends, but kitchen sound suggested she'd been up for some time. I dressed quickly in weekend clothes and headed downstairs, uncertain what I'd find. Anna stood at the stove, expertly flipping pancakes while bacon sizzled in another pan. She'd set the table with our good china, included fresh orange juice, even folded the napkins properly. The scene looked like a peace offering, but her expression remained unreadable. "Good morning, Dad." Her voice was steady, though I detected an underlying nervousness. "I made your favorite breakfast." I hovered in the doorway, unsure how to interpret this development. Yesterday she'd been shattered. Today she was cooking pancakes as if nothing had happened. "Anna, you didn't need to." "Yes, I did." She turned to face me, spatula still in hand. "I wanted to apologize for what I said the other night, about wishing you'd left me in that place." The words hung between us, heavy with newly understood meaning. Anna moved the bacon to a paper towel, her movements deliberate and careful. "And I wanted to thank you." I sat down slowly, still processing this unexpected turn. "Thank me?" "For saving me." Anna brought a plate of perfect pancakes to the table, then returned for the bacon and juice. "I never really understood what you saved me from. I've been so focused on what I thought I was missing that I never appreciated what I actually had." She sat across from me, folding her hands in her lap like a much younger child. "I saw her yesterday, my Linda. She didn't even recognize me. Anna, I may have gone too far with that lesson." The admission came easier than expected. "I never wanted to hurt you like that. But I needed to see it." Anna's voice was stronger now, more certain. "I needed to understand that when I said I wished you'd left me there, I was wishing away everything good in my life. This house, my education, feeling safe, feeling wanted." She paused, looking around our kitchen. "Feeling loved." I reached across the table, covering her hand with mine. "You are loved, Anna, more than you'll ever know." "I know that now." She turned her hand palm up, squeezing my fingers. "I'm sorry it took something so harsh to make me understand." We ate breakfast together in comfortable quiet, both of us processing how much had changed in less than 24 hours. Anna asked about normal things, my work schedule, weekend plans, whether I needed help with yard work. The ordinary conversation felt precious after yesterday's devastating revelations. "I love you, Dad," she said as we cleared the dishes together. "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I was being impossible." "Never," I replied, meaning it completely. "You're worth fighting for, Anna. You always have been." 4 days later, Anna and I sat in the living room sorting through photo albums, a task that had become our new evening routine. She'd been different since our trip to Greensboro, more thoughtful, more present, more willing to share her thoughts and plans. "Look at this one," Anna said, pointing to a picture from her first Christmas with us. 5-year-old Anna sat surrounded by wrapping paper, clutching a stuffed elephant with fierce determination. I remember being afraid someone would take it away. You wouldn't let that elephant out of your sight for months, I recalled, studying the photograph. You named him Mr. Gray. I still have him. Anna smiled, the first genuinely happy expression I'd seen since our return. He's in my closet. I guess I always knew how precious he was. She turned the page, revealing more adoption memories, birthday parties, beach trips, school events. Each image documented the life we'd built together, the childhood I'd worked so hard to give her. I've been thinking about this summer, Anna said, closing the album. Instead of hanging around or taking that Mexico trip with my friends, maybe I should get a job, start saving money for things I actually need. What kind of job interests you? Maybe something at the library or helping with summer programs for kids. She tucked her legs under her, settling deeper into the couch. I want to do something meaningful, something that helps people. The maturity in her voice struck me. This wasn't the rebellious teenager who'd thrown car keys at the wall less than a week ago. This was a young woman making thoughtful decisions about her future. I think that shows real wisdom, Anna. I learned from the best. She grinned, then grew more serious. Actually, I was wondering, what would you think about us taking a vacation together this summer, somewhere we both want to go? I'd love that. Where did you have in mind? Maybe somewhere with history. I realize I don't know enough about the world, about different places and cultures. Anna pulled her knees up, hugging them. I want to learn things, see things, instead of just consuming everything you've given me without understanding its value. We spent the next hour planning possible destinations, discussing everything from New England historical sites to national parks. Anna listened to my suggestions with genuine interest, offering thoughtful questions and ideas of her own. You know, she said as we prepared to head upstairs, we make a pretty good team, don't we? We always have, Anna. I gathered the photo albums, stacked them carefully on the coffee table. I just think we both understand it better now. The best teams communicate honestly, Anna said, standing and stretching, even when the truth is hard to hear. Looking at my daughter, really looking at her, I saw not just the scared little girl I'd adopted, or the angry teenager who'd rejected my protection, but a young woman ready to build something meaningful with her life. The lesson I'd taught her had been harsh, perhaps too harsh, but it had accomplished something important. Anna understood now that love sometimes means saying no, that protection isn't imprisonment, and that gratitude isn't weakness. And I understood that she was ready for a different kind of relationship, one built on mutual respect rather than parental authority. Good night, Dad. Thank you for everything. Good night, sweetheart. Sweet dreams. As she headed upstairs, I remained in the living room for a few more minutes, surrounded by the evidence of our family's journey. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new conversations, new opportunities to build on this foundation we'd rediscovered. But tonight, for the first time in months, our house felt truly peaceful. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.